أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك وعلى ابن عمك أمير المؤمنين وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمنا من لجأ إليكم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما من كلام لسيدنا ومولانا أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام أنه قال أما والذي فلق الحبة وبرأ النسمة لولا حضور الحاضر وقيام الحجة بوجود الناصر وما أخذ الله على العلماء أن لا يقاروا على كرة ظالم وسغب مظلوم لألقيت حبلها على غاربها ولسقيت آخرها بكأس أولها ولألفيتم دنياكم هذه أزهد عندي من عفطة عنز صدق مولانا أمير المؤمنين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and my great thanks that He allowed me to be at your service at this community, at this holy nights and days which belong to our Master Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And my condolences to you all, my dear brothers and sisters, and to the entire Muslim Ummah, and to our scholars, and above all to our masters, to our master Al-Imam Sahib Al-Asr wal-Zaman for this tragedy. In addition to glorifying the Imam alayhi salam and talking about his features, he's an exemplary model that from every aspect of his life we get to learn many lessons. One aspect of his life is his attitude and feeling toward power, toward political power, toward Khilafah. How did he feel about that? How was his position and how he conducted himself? Inshallah, within my speech, I will be talking about certain points. But as an introduction, if you look at the Imam alayhi salam, I urge the brothers and sisters to keep those children quiet. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. This salawat it reminds me of someone who's before iftar, still fasting, and not here in Northern Europe, when the sunset is 11 or 12 a.m. This salawat belongs to them, but for our brothers and sisters who are here in Australia, and they have the fasting breaking at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and after, mashallah, a big fat break fasting. This is not a salawat. I need to hear a big and loud salawat. Imam Ali alayhi salam, brothers, you can move forward. Here are chairs. There are empty chairs here. The Imam alayhi salam came to power in 35 of Hijrah, and he was martyred in Ramadan of 40th of Hijrah. If we add up the time of his reign, his governance, they are about 5 years and 3 months. In these 5 years and 3 months, if you look at history, the Islamic empire, the Islamic state did not advance, did not increase, not even a single yard, as opposing to the previous governments before the Imam. In addition to that, there were 3 devastating wars, domestic wars, that the Imam was involved with. The first one was the Battle of Jamal. In the Battle of Jamal, more than 18,000 people were killed. The second war was the Battle of Siffin. In this battle, more than 75, historians say more than 75,000 people also were killed. And lastly, the Battle of Nahrawan, where more than 4,000 people, again, were killed. Now, what is special about those who were killed is that all of them, which is almost 100,000, all of them have claimed to declare Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, meaning that they were all Muslims. In addition to this, in addition to those tragedies, the source of income, the source of revenue for any state at that time is by advancement, meaning that they conquer other territories, they plunder the wealth, they take the wealth of others and bring it in. And that was the source of income for the majority of people. So based on that, since the Imam alayhi salam did not advance 1 inch out of his territory, the economic situation was poor for the population in that community and within the state of the Imam alayhi salam. Now, if you think of this, if they tell you a politician who has done this, never advanced his state, he had 3 devastating wars, the economic situation was terrible, evaluate such kind of leader, what would you say? You would say that this person is a total failure. He didn't help his community, he didn't help his state, and more of a bloodshed within the community itself, within the Muslim community. How can we explain this? The irony, brothers and sisters, after 1400 years, exactly after 1400 years, not from the voice of Muslims and those who believe in the Imam, rather from those who are non-Muslims and seculars have said this about Imam Ali alayhi salam. For example, in 1997, at the time of Kofi Annan's leadership of the United Nations, he was then at the time the Secretary General of the United Nations. In 1997, in the conference for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, he says this. He says, a human rights principle can be found in the teaching of Imam Ali alayhi salam. That is number 1. Second, the Commission for Human Rights, the committee that was established in New York, they have issued a resolution. Look at the resolution, look at what they say. And those are all secular, non-Muslim members of the UN body. What do they say? They say that the Khalifa Ali ibn Abi Talib is considered the fairest governor who appeared during human history. Meaning, if you look throughout the human history for 12,000 years, You cannot find fairer governor than Ali ibn Abi Talib. More just governor than Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is not a statement, this is a testimonial not from his followers or any Muslim. Rather from someone who's secular, who have seen the world, who have examined the leaderships of the world, yet comes with such beautiful statement. Aren't Muslims are unfortunate not to follow the examples of Ali ibn Abi Talib? What has gone wrong? What has happened during, his era? In my speech, brothers and sisters, again, I will reiterate the topic. It is to talk about his attitude toward power. How would he think of power, political power? But before that, let's look at what the world thinkers and Islamic thinkers and leaders think about power. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. If we categorize them, they are in three groups. The first group are the pro-power themselves, telling you that you need to clutch into power in any way possible. You need to grab power with your fierce claws. Hold power. Once you hold power and settle, at that time do your reformation. At that time carry on your agenda. But remember, first thing, or the first objective, is how you reach power. You need to reach power by any means. Power is number one. Do it in any way you can. After you gain power, then do whatever you want. Why? Because they say in the eye of world community, the rightful person is the powerful person. Always ask, who's the more powerful? You see the right is with him. Today, don't we live in the 21st century? Who's the one who decides for the world community? Don't we have those 5 superpowers? Who tell what is wrong, what is right? Who choose for people what is justice and what is injustice? Who are those? Those are the ones who are the most powerful. For those kind of thinkers, they tell you, you need to have power. Once you have the power, you are rightful. No one can object to you. So the primary goal is to reach the political power. We have many of those thinkers both in the Western and Islamic worlds. Machiavelli was one of them. To tell you that he was living in the 16th century tells you the powerful is the rightful, and the rightful is the powerful. In our Islamic history, we also have some leaders. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, when he captured Iraq, he went to speak to the people that he had conquered. He said that, I came to you and I fought you not for you that you do the fasting or the prayers. Wallahi ma qataltukum litusallu aw litasummu aw litahujju aw litazakku. I'm not here fighting with you for the sake that you do the prayers or do the fasting or go to Hajj or perform the zakat. Because I know you do all of those. I did only for one thing. وَإِنَّمَا قَاتَلْتُكُمْ لِأَتَأَمَّرَ عَلَيْكُمْ. I am fighting you so I become your boss. So I become, Amir al-Mu'mineen. So you would call me Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is my objective. This is my entire, dream to rule you. This is one Islamic ruler that is being, appreciated and respected by the majority of Muslims. This is his own creed and this is his own word. Another one, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. Abdul Malik ibn Marwan was again another Umayyi Khalifa. He used to say that I was Hamamat al-Masjid. I was a pigeon of Masjid. Always sitting in Masjid and reciting Quran. Once upon a time, someone came and tapped on my shoulder and told me, the Khalifa, your father is dead, and now you are the Khalifa. Please come to the palace. He said at that time, I closed the Quran, I kissed it, and I said, this is, a separation between me and you. هَذَا فِرَاقٌ بَيْنِي I have to go and do my government. This is what I am. He later on said, he said, when I used to walk to the masjid, as I put my steps on the ground, I was very careful, watching very carefully not to see that I'm stepping on some insects like grasshopper. I don't want to kill any insect unjustly. I'm so careful, I was so careful. But nowadays, my governor Hajjaj in Baghdad, in Kufa, tells me that he has killed thousands upon thousands, and I don't blink. To me, as if I'm drinking, a cup of water. Nothing is happening to me. Why? Because in his mind, the first thing is to capture power. Power for them is everything. This is the first group of people. The second group of people are just the opposite. They tell you that power is basically evil and wickedness. A political power, government, is nothing but filth, dirt. If you want to dirty yourself, to make yourself contaminated, then get to power. Because power is made from contamination and dirt. This is their idea. This is their creed. That power will spoil everything. No matter how righteous you are, no matter how pious you are, even if you perform. Remember Abdul Malik ibn Marwan? Eventually he was in the masjid, he was reciting Quran, he was performing the prayers, but overnight since he changed, his entire attitude changed. To a certain extent, their point is very valid. We know some of good people who were in the masjid, who were within the community, but once they reached power, they completely transformed. They became vicious. They became killers and mass murderers. Why? Because the power contaminates. Power is uncontrolling thing. You cannot control it. Once you reach a post and become a ruler, at that time things go under your control. That thing within yourself cannot be controlled. Therefore you are changed to become a murderer, a vicious. They give this example. There used to be a snake man. You know what a snake man? Snake man is the guy who brings the snakes in in those pockets, and then with his flute, as he flutes, the snake keeps dancing or make believe that it is dancing. In this way he entertained the people. So they say this famous snake man, he went to the mountain, he found a big serpent, big python. He thought that this python is dead because it was cold. So he grabbed the python, put it in the bag, and comes down to the valley, to the city. As the sun rises, the weather gets warmer, this python starts to move. As it moves, get out of the bag and start biting and stinging people, including the snake man himself. Within ourselves, we have this soul, just like the python. Once it gets out of the pocket, it goes uncontrolled. You cannot control it anymore. This is associated with the power. Power can destroy everything, just like a fire that engulfs the entire field of the trees, and everything gets destroyed with it. According to those group, they say you cannot repair the ruler. Just leave the ruler the way he is. You cannot change them. They never ask people to revolt against the ruler. Why? Because they say a bully will replace another bully. We change the ruler for the sake of getting, our life better. But what do we get? We get something worse. And if you look in the so-called Arab Spring countries, if you see, Egypt, Libya, and the rest of those countries, that they have changed. But what kind of change they got? Did they get better? Or their situation even went worse? According to this group of people, they tell you the problem is not the people. The problem is the power itself. It is contaminating. It is destroying. It is a destructive agent. The farther you are from power, the better you are. So those are the second group of people. The third group, they say power by itself is not bad and not good. It depends on your own intention. How you think of it. If the ruler seek power for the sake of power only, so he becomes ruler, so he be called Amir al-Mu'mineen or Khalifa or King, that is considered to be destructive. But if you utilize power for the sake of people, for advancement of your community, for getting them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is something good. And there is an ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the situation. It says, الَّذِينَ إِن مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةِ. Those people that once they get the opportunity to govern, to be the rulers, what do? They erect the norm of prayers. They perform. It doesn't mean that you perform the prayers, you go in the mihrab and say Allahu Akbar and perform the prayers. Rather, they make the entire community, the entire state receptive to the prayers. How? Is that when you eradicate injustice, when you bring justice, when there is equality between people, when you go for fairness and welfare of people, when you cleanse yourself, that is considered to be receptive for prayers. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. One effect of the prayers is a cleansing, self-cleansing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those people, once they reach power, what they will do, they make the entire environment receptive to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is it. And Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was among them. He by himself didn't run for power. He never thought of going, after power. In his famous words, he says in the dua, he says, Allahumma innahu lam yakun alladhi kana minna munafasatan fi sultan wala iltimas shay'in min fudul al-hutam walakin linarudda al-ma'alim min dinik wa tuqamu al-mu'attalatu min hududik وَيَأْمَنُ الْمَظْلُومُونَ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ. He said, oh God, if I have went into battles with 3 different groups of people, not for the sake of power, nor to accumulate wealth and treasure. My idea, my intention was those things. لِنَرُدَّ الْمَعَالِمَ مِنْ دِينِكَ. Your landmark, the landmark of religion should be known, should be reappearing to people. وَتُقَامُ الْمُعَطَّلَةُ مِنْ حُدُودِكَ. Your regulations, your ahkam, your deed should be all clear to people. وَيَأْمَنُ الْمَظْلُومُونَ مِنْ عِبَادِكَ. Those who are oppressed, the servants of you who are oppressed, so they can have safety and they can have a protection for the sake of people. One day Ibn Abbas, after the leadership of the Imam, after people came and pledged allegiance to Imam, and the Imam was declared Khalifa, one day he was sewing his shoe by his hand. At that time Ibn Abbas came to him and told him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, there are delegates who came all the way from different parts of the region, come to salute you, to pledge allegiance to you, and you are sitting sewing your shoes. He looked at the shoe, raised it and told Ibn Abbas, you think how much this shoe worth? Ibn Abbas said, I felt very bad and embarrassed to tell him that this shoe doesn't worth anything. But I said, this is cheap, very cheap shoe. He said, Ibn Abbas, إِنَّ إِمْرَتَكُمْ هَذِهِ أَزْهَدُ عِنْدِي مِنْ هَذَا النَّعْمِ. This leadership that you're talking about, and this congratulations that people are coming to offer me their congratulation is pettier than this, worthless shoe. Illa, except, he said this. He said, this one doesn't worth anything. Illa, except, illa an uqim haqqan wa adfa' batila. Until I erect justice and push away injustice. At that time, leadership is accepted. You see, brothers and sisters, the life of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was full of tragedies. When you look at the early age of the Imam, after the demise of the Prophet, peace be upon him, first, his right for Khilafah was plundered, was taken away. He and his clans were all sidelined from power, from political power. His household property in the form of Fadak was taken away. And worse than all of those, who lost his devout and young wife, Fatima alayhi salam, due to the, political situation. As a martyr, as the first sacrifice of his way. His life was full of agonies. If you look, a young man who has been promised by the Prophet to be the leader, to be the Khalifa, all of a sudden after the Prophet, who faced with so many tragedies and difficulties, even after he became Khalifa. In one of his beautiful statements, and all the statements of Ali ibn Abi Talib are so beautiful, he says, مَا زِلْتُ مَدْفُوعًا, when those people came to fight against him, he said, مَا زِلْتُ مَدْفُوعًا عَنْ حَقِّي مُسْتَأْثَرًا عَلَيَّ مُنْذُ أَنْ قُبِضَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. He said that I was always pushed from my right, from what was my basic right, I was pushed away from that. Always people went against me from the very beginning that the Prophet, peace be upon him, passed away. In another heartbreaking and sad statement that he gives when his devout wife, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, passes away, is martyred, as he lays her in the graveyard, at that time he breaks into tears and says, Ya Rasulullah, amma huzni fasarmad, wa amma layli famusahad. My agony, my grief is perpetual. It's an eternal. It's never going to be ending. Wa layli famusahad. I am always will be wakeful. Insomnia. I cannot sleep the night because of my agony. وَسَتُنَبِّئُكَ ابْنَتُكَ. Listen to this. It says that وَسَتُنَبِّئُكَ ابْنَتُكَ بِتَظَاهُرِ أُمَّتِكَ عَلَى هَضْنِهَا حَقَّهَا. He says that your daughter will tell you how there was a concerted effort by entire community, your ummah, your nation, to plunder her rights. Therefore, Ali ibn Abi Talib was from beginning, his heart was full of agonies, was full of pain. If you see history narrates that after the Imam reaches power, meaning after the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra, 30 some years, he was invited for reception. As they bring sweet and halwa to him, he says that, إِنَّا فِي حُزْنٍ, we are still mourning. I am still in mourning. Mourning who? Mourning Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Or her father, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Meaning, he never enjoyed his life. His life to him was completely meaningless. If you look at Nahj al-Balagha, this beautiful and elegant book of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you see the somber mood, the mood and grief of Ali ibn Abi Talib is overwhelming in the book. From beginning till last, he always admonishes people for taqwa. Taqwa, probably the most frequently recited and repeated word in the entire book was this word taqwa, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Piety, always admonish people to have taqwa. You don't see in the entire book, not even single incident, that he has, a joy, or he jokes, or he has a sense of a humor, talks about something funny, or make, his life humorous. Always, very serious and somber, admonishing people for taqwa. This is revealing of a heart who was completely compliant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to His law. Someone that taqwa has infused in the heart of such author. Why? Because the words are reflective of the hearts. If the words are always, talking about taqwa, talking about fear of God, it tells you that the author, the person who says those, who have a complete obedience to his Lord. That was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Now how did he reach power? If you look at the khulafa before him, and those who governed before him, and you compare them to him, you will see a huge difference. Number one, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was reluctant. Even when they came to him and told him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, now is your time. Ya Ali, it's your time. We don't have anyone. He turned away. He said, no, دعوني والتمسوا غيري. Go find someone else. فإني لكم وزير خير لكم مني أمير. I am be your consultant. He was a consultant to the previous khulafa before him, to the first and second and third khalifa. He was telling them that I would be your advisor, your consultant, better than become, your emir and governor and ruler. Yet they insisted. In one incident in the Nahj al-Balagha, he says this. He says that to the point they flock to me like herds of hyenas. You see how hyenas, when they attack their prey, from every angle they grab the prey and they attack them viciously. He was comparing the masses of people who come to make a pledge, to make bay'ah with him, like herd of hyenas. He says that to the point that they stampeded Hassan and Hussein. They were caught in a stampede. حَتَّى لَقَدْ وُطِئَ الْحَسَنَانِ وَشُقَّ عُطْفَاي. Even my clothes, my dress was torn apart. Why? Because those people flocked to me and asking me to be the ruler. Unlike his predecessors. The predecessors, those who were before him. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi was in the akhirah. He was left. He was dead. His body was laid on the ground. And instead of doing the ceremony, the burial ceremony, they were fighting in Saqifa for the khilafah, for the leadership. This is how they were. This is number one difference between him and the rest. So he never had, his way. He always had it to be a consultant rather than emir. Yet they mandated on him. The second, that he got the khilafah by popular vote. People all rushed to him and made the bay'ah. But when you look at the previous ones, they were not. The first one came with a coup. The second one came with a statement, with a mandate by the first Khalifa to appoint the second Khalifa. And the third one was from a council, 6-member council that is called Shura. And Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, Ya lillahi wa lil shura. They made 6-member council to choose one of them. Unlike Ali ibn Abi Talib, that the masses from everywhere came begging him to be the Khalifa. This is the second one. And the third one, brothers and sisters, the way that he treated the renegades. You see, during the Khilafah of the Imam, despite the fact that the majority, the overwhelming majority of Muslims came and pledged allegiance to him willingly, yet there were some individuals who refused. People like Abdullah ibn Umar, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, Usama ibn Zayd, and the rest, they rejected. They said, we don't pledge allegiance to Ibn Abi Talib. Malik al-Ashtar, who was the right-hand man of the Imam alayhi salam, took his sword to behead them. The Imam said, no, wait, I don't kill them. Leave them alive, I will bail them out. You see, if someone renegades against the ruler, He has to be bailed out. Someone has to say that this guy will stay peaceful, doesn't go and revolt. They didn't have anyone. Ali ibn Abi Talib says that I will bail them out. It's okay. Leave them alive. But what did the predecessors do? You know, during the first Khalifa, they were three gangsters, like Khalid ibn al-Walid, like Salam and Qunfudh. They used to harass people, to force people to come to do the bay'ah and pledge allegiance. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam himself, even according to the narrations of Bukhari, for 6 months he refused to do the bay'ah. But what was the result? He lost his wife, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, who was the first sacrifice of his refusal. The Imam, on the contrary, allowed the descent who didn't want to pledge allegiance. The Imam alayhi salam let him free and asked him to do the free. The way he conditions the Khilafah, he brings it in these three words. He says, لَوْلَا حُضُورُ الْحَاضِرِ. Number one is that the Khilafah became available for me. I didn't go after Khilafah. I didn't go after the rule. The leadership itself came to me. لَوْلَا حُضُورُ الْحَاضِرِ وَقِيَامِ الْحُجَّةِ بِوُجُودِ النَّاصِرِ. Second, that I found followers and assistants who came and pledged their assistance to me. And most importantly, then he says, وَمَا أَخَذَ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْعُلَمَاءِ عَلَى أَنْ لَا يُقَارُّوا عَلَى كِبْضَةِ ظَالِمٍ وَسَبَبِ مَظْلُومٍ. Most importantly is the vow that ulama, the scholars who have vowed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pledged to God not to tolerate the full stomach of the rich and the empty-handedness of the poor. And at that time, I accepted the leadership on this, on this way. That was my condition of accepting the leadership. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. His theme, brothers and sisters, his theme of governance, when he governed, he had an important slogan. That slogan stayed with him even the last minute of his life, when he advises his children. He tells them, وَكُونَا لِلظَّالِمِ خَصْمًا وَلِلْمَظْلُومِ عَوْنًا. That I want one thing from you, and that's to erect justice, fairness to people. If you see a zalim, if you see an oppressor, you have to fight him, no matter who is this person. And if you see an oppressed, always side yourself with the oppressed. In his beautiful words, in one of the sermons, he swears by Allah as his slogan. He says, وَاللَّهِ لَأَنْ أَبِيتَ عَلَى حَسَكِ السَّعْدَانِ مُسَحَّدًا. If I made sleep on those plants, you've seen the cactus, those plants that have sharp spines in the desert. He says that لَإِنْ أَبِيتَ عَلَى حَسَكِ السَّعْدَانِ مُسَحَّدًا أَوْ أُجَرَّ فِي الْأَغْلَالِ مُصَفَّدًا. If I have been shackled and chained and they pull me on the ground while I am chained over and over again, it is easier for me. أحب إلي من أن ألقى الله ورسوله يوم القيامة ظالما لبعض العباد. It is easier for me, it is sweeter. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. It is sweeter for me than being on the day of judgment. I face Allah and the Prophet while I am an oppressor of some of the people, of a single person. وَغَاصِبًا لِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْحُطَامِ. Then he says, وَاللَّهِ لَوْ أُعْطِيتُ الْأَقَالِيمَ السَّبْعِ. If the entire universe, the 7 heavens and earth is given to me as a present, وَبِمَا تَحْتِ أَفْلَاكِهَا عَلَىٰ أَنْ أَعْصِيَ اللَّهَ فِي نَمْلَةٍ. If I take away from an ant a tiny little gram of wheat in her mouth. If I take it away, it's to me, if they give me the entire universe that I will take in return, this tiny food from the mouth of an ant, I wouldn't do it. أن أعصي الله في نملة أسلبها جلب شعيرة ما فعلت. I wouldn't have done it. In his rhyme, when he came, he said whatever money, whatever treasure has been plundered from previous governors, previous khulafa, it should be returned to the Bayt al-Mal. Even if that money has been used as a dowry for the weddings for their wives. Anything that has been plundered has to come back to the, to the treasure. Then he says, وَمَنْ ضَاقَ عَلَيْهِ الْحَقِّ. Many people were, complaining. Ali ibn Abi Talib, why do you do this? Why are you taking money away? Those who are aristocrats in the state, you need to deal with them diligently. You need to deal with them, softly. Don't go and take those monies away. He repeats, says, وَمَنْ ضَاقَ عَلَيْهِ الْحَقِّ فَالْجَوْرُ عَلَيْهِ أَضْيَقُ. If you think that's right, and justice is very narrow, imagine the injustice would be even harsher. Those monies have to go back. The first thing that he did in his rhyme is that he took those corrupt governors, those who have been spoiled, he took them away and replaced them by good individuals. Like Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, like Malik al-Ashtar, like Uthman ibn Hunayf. Those who were honest, were trustworthy, those who have their thoughts and their intention to serve the people, not to plunder the people. That is how he is. Whenever people would come and complain about a governor and he finds it right, he will write the resignation of that governor and give it to those people and tell them, go back and show this letter to your governor. One of them was governor of Ahwaz. After the evidence came that this man was corrupt and was taking money away and oppressing people, those people came to the Imam alayhi salam and complained to him. The Imam wrote to that governor that once this letter reaches you, you consider yourself discharged from power till I send someone else. He was very swift, uncompromising, intolerant about any kind of injustice, even with his enemies. When his enemies, his bitter enemies, were seeking justice in his khilafah, he would offer them. One of them, his name is Abdullah ibn al-Hurr al-Ju'fi. This guy sided with Muawiyah. He deserted the army of Ali ibn Abi Talib in the battle of Siffin and joined Muawiyah. Now, the news were gone. Some said that he was killed. Some said that he survived. But his wife had no idea. After waiting for a while, because the news came that the guy was killed in the battle, so she made iddah for 3 or 4 months. She held, the marriage. Afterward, she got married with someone else. After a while, this man comes to the Imam alayhi salam at night and knocks at the door of the Imam. The Imam opens the door, see Abdullah, tells him, Abdullah, you're alive? He said, yes, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, I came. He said, what are you coming for? He said, I came to take my right away. He said, don't you remember that you sided with Muawiyah? You became a renegade? You went with the enemy? He said, وَهَلْ هَذَا يَمْنَعُنِي مِنْ عَدْلِكَ يَا أَمِيرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ? Would that stop me from your justice? I am seeking your justice. You are the just ruler. The Imam says, no, this would not. He goes back, he calls his wife and her husband and immediately asks the wife to separate her from her new husband, to divorce him, and returns his wife to Abdullah and returns his belongings and his wealth to him. While this guy, has turned away, has sided with his bitter enemy Muawiyah. Which ruler on the face of the planet does this? Even more, the head of Khawarij, the better enemy of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he comes and tells Ali alayhi salam in his face, he tells him, Wallahi la usalli khalfak. From now on, I will not perform my prayer behind you. ولا أجتمع في جمعة معك. I don't perform Salat al-Jum'ah after you. ولا أطيع لك أمر. I even disobey you. I don't even listen to your commands. وإني مفارقك غدا. Tomorrow I'm abandoning you. I'm siding with the Khawarij to be a Khariji, to fight you. Look at the Imam alayhi salam. In response, he says, Wallahi, now you threaten me with three things. You will abandon me. You won't perform my prayer and you disobey me. You don't listen. But here are three things from me to you. Wallahi la namna'akum al-masajid. I will not stop you from coming to masjid. Come to the masjid. Don't pray behind me, but you pray for yourself. وَلَا نَمْنَعَكُمُ الْفَيْء. I don't even stop from giving you your allowance. You need your allowance. You deserve your allowance. I pay you. Ali ibn Abi Talib used to pay his citizens every month 3 dirham or 3 dinar. Whatever was available in Bayt al-Mal. Nothing would stay in Bayt al-Mal. Nothing would stay in the treasury. Even to the Khawarij, even to his better enemies. وَلَا نُقَاتِلِكُمْ. We will not be fighting with you as long as مَا دُمْتُمْ مَا دَامَتْ يَدُكُمْ فِي أَيْدِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. As long as you don't revolt, you don't cause havoc and become reckless in the society, I won't fight you. Those are 3 things versus your 3 things. This was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Even with his better enemy. On the day that Ibn Muljam hit him, the next day he asked about his murder. He asked Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein and told them, where is Ibn Muljam? I haven't heard of him. Tell me, update me about his status. Did you carry food to him? Did you carry milk to him? He was brought milk as a medication for his wounds, for his injuries. He says, carry this milk to your asir, to your captive. He doesn't even say my qatil, my murderer. He said, this is your asir now, he's your captive, your prisoner. You need to treat your prisoner rightly. On that eve, he called upon Ibn Muljam and told him, أَبِئْسَ الْإِمَامُ كُنْتُ لَكَ. How was I bad with you? Did you see anything bad from me? Ibn Muljam replied, أَأَنْتَ تَنْقِذُ مَنْ فِي النَّارِ. I've been assigned to go to hell. This is how Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was. Even on the last days of his life, he wouldn't curse his enemies. He always would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take his life away. In his famous prayers, after each prayer, he would say, مَتَى يُبْعَثُ أَشْقَاهَا لِيُخَضِّبَ هَذِهِ مِنْ هَذِهِ. When God sends someone to come to rest me, to give me rest, I am getting tired with this life. I am getting tired with this people. This is how patient Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam was. How diligent he was. How careful he was when he equate himself and compare with himself with his people, with his population. It is narrated on the last day of his life, he was a guest of his daughter Kulthum. Kulthum brings for him the food that he needs to break the food on. He looks at his fasting on. He looks at the food and see that she has brought him milk and 2 pieces of bread, 2 loaves of bread, and little salt. He looks at her as if she has insulted him. She tells him, Ya Abba, have I done something wrong? She tells him, what else? Look what you have brought me. أتريدين أن يطول موقفي غدا أمام الله? Do you want me that tomorrow in the day of judgment, God will hold me accountable? Haven't you seen me that I eat 2 things in once? Take one of them She wanted to take the salt. He says, no, take the milk away. He breaks his fasting on that last night with 2 pieces of bread and salt. He used to go every moment, every once and then outside and look at the heavens. And he would say, هي والله الليلة التي وعدنيها حبيبي رسول الله. He said, this night is the promised night. This night is my salvation. This is the night that I will be free of this world. Every single moment he will go outside and comes back and performs the prayer, recites the verses and the ayat and makes more of Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. هي والله الليلة التي وعدت بها. He keeps reciting those. Kulthum was nervous. She tells him, Ya Abba, I see you restless. He said, this is my last night of this life. I am joining your grandfather. I am joining your mother in the hereafter. The night goes on until Imam alayhi salam see that the dawn is approaching. He goes and performs the wudu and gets ready to go to the masjid. At that time, as he reaches the yard, there were a few swans. You know, a few ducks and swans were in the pond in the yard. They start screaming and yelling, and he says that now those are screaming, soon we will be hearing the mourning of Zainab and Kulthum, and tomorrow those will be all, ready. La ilaha illallah, صوائح تتبعها نوائح وفي غداة غد يظهر القضاء. Then he goes to the masjid, he performs the adhan, he goes to the ma'dana, and then declares adhan that everyone in Kufa hears the beautiful voice, the serene voice of Ali ibn Abi Talib. And that was the last night that people of Kufa were fortunate to hear their Imam to declare the adhan. Afterward, he keeps repeating this, Allahumma barik li fil maut. Allahumma barik li fil maut. Then he comes down and he keeps waking up the people. He says, عباد الله قوموا إلى الصلاة يرحمكم الله. عباد الله قوموا إلى الصلاة المكتوبة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر. Then he sees Ibn Muljam facing on his stomach, sleeping while he's hiding the sword behind him. He looks at him and he says that قم يا عبد الله قم من نومك هذا فإنها نومة يمقتها الله. Do not sleep this way. Then he says لقد هممت بشيء تكاد السماوات أن يتفطرن منه. I know what you will be doing. You're going to do something that the heavens will be shivering from your action. Then he goes to the prayers. Ya mu'mineen, are you ready? This is the tragedy of your Imam. Then he starts the prayers. Then he goes to the ruku and sujood. The enemy of Allah comes behind him. Then he shakes the sword. As Ali ibn Abi Talib comes from prostration, he hits the Imam on his head. The Imam declares, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Bismillah wa billah wa fi sabilillah wa ala millati rasulillah fustu wa rabbil Kaaba. Look at the Imam. He said that at that moment I am victorious. I have reached my beloved things. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. At that time, Jibreel declared between heaven and earth, ألا ألا تهدمت والله أركان الهدى وانطمست والله أعلام التقى. قتل ابن عم المصطفى قتل علي المرتضى قتله
أشقى الأشقياء. This declaration reaches every corner of the city. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, they hear the call of Jibreel. They rush to the masjid. They see their father is bloodied in the mihrab. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam asked his son Hassan to perform the prayers, to lead the prayers of Salatul Subh. While he does it, is, sitting on the ground. Imagine Ali ibn Abi Talib, this man who have shaken and removed the gate of Khaybar with two of his fingers. Now Ali ibn Abi Talib is so weak, performing his prayer while sitting on the ground. Afterward, he feels unconscious. He lays on the ground. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he grabs his head and put it on his shoulder, on his lap. As he wipes the blood, the tears of Hussein fall on the face of Ali. Ali ibn Abi Talib opens his eyes and see Imam Hussein. Is he crying and weeping? Says, Aba Abdullah, oh my beloved Hussein, it is you. He said, yes, ya Aba. فقال وأسفا عليك أبا عبد الله وأنت صريع على صعيد كربلاء. Tomorrow you will be facing the same destiny. You will be on the ground of Karbala. Who will take your head? Who will put it on in his lap? At that time the Imams decide to take their father to home. They carry the Imam alayhi salam. His followers carry him. As they get close to his home, he asked them to put him down. He said, I want to walk. They say, why? He said, I don't want to see Zainab and Kulthum seeing their father is carried away. And then they think, I am so weak. I want to make them relief. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. العلي العظيم إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك بأحب الخلق إليك محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين، فرج عنا يا الله. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات، إنك مجيب الدعوات، إنك قاضي الحاجات، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور، اللهم أغني كل فقير، اللهم أشبع كل جائع، اللهم اكس كل عريان، اللهم اقض دين كل مدين، اللهم فرج عن كل مكروه، اللهم رد كل غريب، اللهم فك كل أسير، اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين، اللهم اشف كل مريض، اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك، اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك، اللهم اقض عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.